The Broncos head coaching search is in full force, and we're going to give you all the latest news and rumors surrounding GM George Paton's journey to find the next head coach of the Denver Broncos on today's Broncos Breakdown. I'm Matthew Peterson. So we're going to go through the entire candidate list. We'll see the interview schedules, and then at the end, I'm going to toss a name in the hat that maybe George should be looking at. Maybe he's got 10 names right now. Maybe an 11th is worthwhile. I've got kind of a sleeper guy to keep an eye on. So before we get to all that, I just want to keep you guys on your toes, keep a little light here. Who do you think is the more talented quarterback? Is it John Elway or is it Joe Montana? If you think it's Elway, if you're going to roll with 7, give me a JE. If you think it's number 16 out in the Bay, give me a JM in the comments section below. Shout out to all of you guys who watch these two guys play. Unfortunately, pretty clearly I'm a little too young to have watched them in their prime or even play at all. So let's get to the candidates here. So I've got them ranked here from 10 to 1 on my preference of who I'd like to see be the next Broncos head coach. I think it's worth mentioning that the back half here, numbers 10 through 6, a lot of these guys I think are interviews because of two reasons. One, maybe a future coordinator for the Broncos, like Luke Getsy. Could the Broncos want to bring him on as the offensive coordinator? And this is just kind of an excuse to pick his brain a little bit. / names get tossed around in league circles a ton, and so I think maybe these are some popular names rising that Paton just wants to see, hey, what's all the hype about? But on to numbers 5 through 1 here. These are names I think are legit candidates, meaning they have an actual realistic shot of being the next Broncos head coach. So far, Paton has talked to Hackett on this top 5 list, and that is it. But we'll get to the entire interview list in a moment, and we'll peek at who the early favorite may be to be the next Broncos head coach. But let me ask this to you. Who do you think the Broncos will hire? We'll ask later on who you want them to hire. But let me know who you think they're going to hire, right? Kind of separating heart versus brain. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This is the pinned comment on today's video. So if a YouTube ad break comes on by, just scroll on down, give me your response, and come back up when the ad is over. Here is the entire interview schedule for the Broncos. So as you can see, Paton's already conducted a couple interviews. He started off in Detroit talking to Aaron Glenn, the DC. Then he went up north, talked to a pair of Green Bay Packers and the QB coach with Luke Getsy and Nathaniel Hackett. And Hackett apparently was very impressive in the interview process. Then after the wild card weekend, he's picking up, as we record this today, Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore in Dallas. I love to picture that this is a complete remake of Step Brothers, and they are just sitting behind each other, and Paton's like, who's this over here? And Kellen Moore like peeks behind him, hello there, pretty lady. Or I like to picture that he talks to Dan Quinn first, and he goes, so what do you think of Kellen Moore? And he just kind of goes, he's a great coach, while shaking his head no. All right, let's move on to the back half of scheduling here. I really don't know if you should read much into who he talks to, like a priority. I don't think because he's speaking to Bienemy last, that means Bienemy is further behind than other these guys. I think a lot of it is a lot of these coaches are still in the playoffs, except for Gannon and Mayo, so they got to work around their playoff schedule. You know, Bienemy's got team meetings. He's got to prepare for the Buffalo Bills matchup. So those are the interview dates and schedules. It's going to wrap up this Friday, so potentially by the time you're watching this, a lot of these interviews have already been conducted, and a lot of the, reviews are out, and it's all over Yelp and everything, and we know who the favorites are and who kind of tanked their interviews, because that was Bienemy's knock last offseason. He was part of head coaching carousel searches, didn't get hired, and then a lot of people said he wasn't a great interviewer, which you can decide if that's an important quality if they're really good at answering what their greatest weakness is, or if they're just good at putting a competent football on the team. Before I tell you who the top candidates are, though, for the Broncos, guys, help us reach 5,500 subscribers. Would really appreciate it. We're almost there. We're at 5,200 right now. So if you haven't subscribed already, please hit that big red button, join the channel, make us a part of your routine to get the latest Broncos news and rumors. We're pumping out content all off season. The top two candidates. So number 1 is Dan Quinn. I've got a pros and cons list for each one here. That's the best way to evaluate them. So for Dan Quinn, his pros are he's got head coaching experience. He was with the Falcons for 5.5 seasons. He also took Atlanta to the Super Bowl in just his second season. And then once he was canned by the Falcons, went to Dallas and immediately turned a defense that was a laughingstock last season into one of the best defenses in the NFL instantly, basically. Now, the cons for Dan Quinn. It wasn't a great ending in Atlanta, right? He takes them to the Super Bowl in year 2, and then they go way downhill. And I think it's the 28-3 curse that they were just never really able to get over that. Also, if you're, Broncos fans, you know the last time we hired a defensive coordinator as a head coach, how it worked out. I think that's working against Dan Quinn. That he's a DC, Vic Fangio is a DC. Is this Vic Fangio 2.0, basically? And then also, when Quinn was in Atlanta, he had a pretty good offensive coordinator in Kyle Shanahan. So, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, that offense was awesome, was one of the best in the NFL. Was that Dan Quinn's doing, or was that Kyle Shanahan's doing? Some combination of the two. Was it 90-10 Shanahan, or was it more 60-40? Because I could take 60-40, but I can't take 9 and 10. All right, Nathaniel Hackett, that's the offensive coordinator for the Packers. He was very impressive in his interview. I'm reading on Twitter, and with some of the rumors and news are coming out of it. So the pros for good old Nate. Actually, I'm pro Nathaniel. Power move to you if you're Nathaniel and you go by a full name. I like that. So the pros for him. Name's tied to the Packers offense. If you are anywhere near Aaron Rodgers right now, your stock just rises based on the connection. Now, another pro would be, could you get a package deal for Aaron Rodgers? Meaning you hire Nathaniel Hackett, and he goes, listen, A-Rod, he's my boy. Hire me. He's going to want to get traded here in the offseason. Done deal. And he also has play calling experience, which I like to see in a head coach that's an offensive-minded guy. I don't want him to be, a guinea pig and get his first play calling experience when he's the head coach. It hasn't worked out very well for a lot of teams in the past. Did it with the Jags and made Blake Bortles, who, by the way, is a future Hall of Famer, made him look like an all-pro. So he's done some great things. He was part of that Jags team that was 1 fourth quarter away from beating the Patriots in Foxborough to go to the Super Bowl. That was his Jags team. The cons for him, though, he's got no head coaching experience. And he was the offensive coordinator for the Bills at one point, and not the Josh Allen Bills, but the Bills before that, like the bad Bills. Kyle Orton was his quarterback 1 year. E.J. Manuel, not pretty stuff. And then the same for the Jags. If you say you're the offensive coordinator for the Jags, people aren't going to start bowing down to you, right? It's the Jags. They haven't done much really ever. Now, the other big con is if Rodgers doesn't leave Green Bay and you hire Hackett because one of his biggest pros was he could bring Aaron Rodgers, are you just going to look at him like, so do you have any other talents? Because we really just wanted you because of Rodgers. I just hope that isn't a driving force, is the possibility of luring Aaron Rodgers, and then Rodgers goes, you know what, actually, I'd rather continue playing here in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has been very supportive of Nathaniel Hackett, though. He said this not long ago about the possibility of Hackett getting hired as a head coach. He went, this is a little overdue, to be honest. He's been around the game a long time. What he did in Jacksonville, I think, was pure magic, getting them to within a quarter of the Super Bowl. He's a great coach. I love spending time with him. He's a fantastic teacher. He's incredible in front of the room. He's very supportive of his guy, Nathaniel, and I expect a lot of this is kind of NFL tongue-in-cheek of course, you're going to gas up and pump up your guys there to try and get them a head coaching gig. But if Rodgers was never planning on leaving Green Bay, if all that offseason turmoil didn't happen, and it was just hunky-dory, status quo, he's going to return next year, of course he would, would Nathaniel Hackett be that big of a name right now for the Broncos? Or is his name kind of rising because of the idea of potentially landing Rodgers? So why don't you pair him with the coach he wants to go with? That's my only question. If Rodgers' saga never happened, would Hackett be a top 3 guy? But pick a coach for me. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Dan Quinn, DQ, some Dairy Queen, or Nathaniel Hackett, New Hampshire, NH? Let me know who you'd rather have in the comments section below. Curious what your thoughts are. I've seen pretty split on this, but I think it's leaning Hackett right now. Before we get to a name you should keep an eye on, we have a great deal going on with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code Broncos125. Put $100 in, you get an extra $125 to play with. Now you got $225 to play with, and maybe you want to bet on, say, the divisional round. Here are the odds for this upcoming weekend. You got the Titans and the Bengals. Tennessee 3.5-point favorites. Pretty low, honestly, for the 1 seed coming off a bye, if you ask me. Over-unders at 47. Then you got the Packers. I like the 49ers a lot. That's kind of my lock of the week. San Francisco +6. That's a lot of points for a San Fran team that just went to Dallas and beat the crap out of the Cowboys. And then the Bucks, Rams, Tampa Bay -3, pretty low over/under if you ask me. And then the Chiefs, Bills, probably the best game of the weekend. I think Buffalo's going to win it outright. But if you want to, put your money where your mouth is, do it at BetUS. That's where I gamble. So ride with me there. Get that promo code. Get that deposit bonus when you go to chatsports.com/bet. And the promo code Broncos125. Overall, I think Hackett's got a lot of buzz around him. I think Quinn's, we'll talk about it in a moment, but the idea of hiring Hackett just seems like a big gamble, okay? He has some play calling experience with the Bills and the Jags, had one good season with the Jags. The rest of his stuff, not great numbers. And a lot of it, I think, is because of Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not trying to say that Hackett's just a complete fraud and he's just riding the coattails of Rodgers. He's been in other interview coaching circles. The Chicago Bears are talking to him. Other teams are looking at him. So it's not fully because of Rodgers, but it seems like a pretty big gamble to me, in my opinion. Other names to monitor here in terms of who could maybe see their stock rise when the interviews take place this weekend. The second-tier candidates, I got Bienemy, Brian Callahan, and Kellen Moore. Moore's stock has really diminished. It did not look pretty in the divisional matchup and the wild card matchup, and same for Quinn. But Moore's offense with the Cowboys kind of been a roller coaster this year. He's 33. Maybe you're biting off more than you can chew. Brian Callahan, he's the OC with the Bengals. Look what he's done with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But also, he's got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Also does not call the plays there in Cincinnati. And then Bienemy, I think he is worth I think Bienemy is a little overdue at this point probably, but maybe he's waiting to see if Andy Reid will retire. That's a long way to go, though. So those are the second tier of candidates I've got right now. Another thing you should be looking at, another name worth adding to the list, meaning if I had like the phone to the Kremlin, if I had a red line I could pick up and call my good buddy George out in Mile High, I would say, look at this guy. Look at Mike McDaniel. Way back when I did one of my first Vic Fangio replacements videos, I included this as a super sleeper, as a guy maybe they'll look at. It's the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. He's been with San Francisco since 2017. First, he was their run game coordinator, then the offensive coordinator. Everyone finds running the football super boring, just time and age of football. San Francisco makes running the football fun, and that's hard to do, but they master it. And you got to give credit to this guy. The Shanahans, a big name in Denver, big fan of his. He got his first kind of start in the NFL under Mike Shanahan in Denver. He was the intern for the Broncos, and then he got another job with his son, Kyle Shanahan, in Washington. So the Shanahans love this guy, and so if one of the greatest Broncos coaches of all time likes someone, then yeah, I'll like him too. And he's also from Aurora, so he's a native of Denver, and he knows the Broncos, and so he knows the franchise pretty well. But who do you want the Broncos to hire? Let me know who you'd like to see them. Who do you want? Who's your top guy? Let me know in the comment section. We'll go back and forth and kind of go through some of the highs and lows of who you think the Broncos should hire. My money is still on Dan Quinn, though, and that's where Vegas' money's too. He's one of the favorites, and deservingly so. He's got head coaching experience, and he wasn't a complete bum when he was with Atlanta. Sure, not a graceful landing, but he got them to the Super Bowl. He has shown that he can win games, and a lot of times some of the best coaches in the NFL come in their second stint. Look at Bill Belichick. People forget. Kind of flamed out in Cleveland. That was a big mistake by the Browns to let him go. But even Shanahan with Broncos, he was with the Raiders beforehand. So tons of the best NFL coaches actually got their namesake going in their second chance. So we'll catch you later here on the Broncos Breakdown. Have a good one, Denver.